A historic visit is set to take place as the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer heads to the United States for high-stakes talks with President Donald Trump. With the bust of Winston Churchill watching over the meeting, Prime Minister Starmer faces a critical challenge, and it's to secure U.S. security guarantees for Ukraine while maintaining strong transatlantic relations. We have more details in this report.
Keir Starmer's mission to Washington is clear: to convince President Trump to remain committed to supporting Ukraine and countering Russian aggression. His visit comes at a crucial time following previous diplomatic efforts that have yielded little progress. French President Emmanuel Macron recently visited Washington on a similar mission, but left without firm commitment. While Macron sought to revive diplomatic ties with Trump, he received no concrete assurances. Now, all eyes are on Starmer as he attempts to navigate these complex negotiations.
Well, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that because it's in, we're talking about Europe as their next door neighbor. But we're going to make sure everything goes well. And as you know, we'll be making we'll be really partnering with Ukraine in terms of rare earth. We very much need rare earth. They have great rare earth.
Trump has made it clear that he is reluctant to commit the U.S. to robust security guarantees for Ukraine. However, Starmer argues that peace in the region is only possible with a strong U.S. commitment. With tensions high and diplomatic stakes even higher, Starmer's visit to the White House could define the future of U.S.-UK relations and the global effort to maintain stability in Eastern Europe.
Well, journalist Francis Hughes joins me from Belfast in Northern Ireland for more on this. Good to have you join us on World Now. As it is, Emmanuel Macron has traveled this road but left without firm commitment. Now Keir Starmer is treading the same path. Do you foresee any positive outcomes with regard to getting security guarantees for Ukraine from the U.S.?
Absolutely not. If we look at what really happened in Ukraine, this was an American proxy war against Russia. This was Biden's war with the coup in Ukraine and Kiev in 2014. And then when he came back into power in 2020, then we began to see the buildup of the Ukrainian armed forces. We saw the failure and the lies around the Minsk I and Minsk II agreements. You had Francois Hollande of France, and you had Angela Merkel of Germany, both guarantors for Minsk I and II. And then they publicly came out last year, 18 months ago, and said that was a complete ruse, that was a complete lie. They had no intention of implementing and standing over these agreements. They were just biding time in order to build up the Ukrainian armed forces. So the war in Ukraine was Biden's war. It was Biden's money. It was Biden's munitions. It was Biden's cover in the UN. Trump said when he came to power, he'd end the war. That's exactly what he's doing. If America is in a proxy war with Russia using Ukraine, then it's the American administration and the Russian administration who will settle the final ceasefire deal, the final outcome, the final positions. And all Trump is really interested in is ending the war so that he no longer has to finance it. And then he wants to steal or get access to as many resources that belong to the Ukrainian people as he possibly can. So he's a businessman, he's a millionaire, billionaire. He sees an opportunity to make money for American corporations. And that is the bottom line for Donald Trump. That is all he is interested in. And Starmer is on a complete waste of time because the EU and Ukraine will have no input into this negotiated end to the conflict, end to the special military operation. And he'll just come back home like a little schoolboy who's been told what's going to happen. He will have no influence over Trump, and the EU and NATO will just fall in line with whatever the American administration decides.
Well, you have emphasized the fact that Donald Trump is interested in ending the war, but there are also concerns about what happens after now. is there the probability that Russia might want to come back, and try to launch another offensive? And President Trump believes that the EU is in a position to actually secure these guarantees. So do you see the European Union stepping up to take up this responsibility? And how cooperative do you think Russia would be to this?
Well, Russia, with its special military operation, in my opinion, I visited the Donbass. I've been to both Luhansk and Donetsk, the oblast that seceded after the coup in 2014. The people there said they never left Ukraine. Ukraine left them. They had no say in the coup financed by the CIA and MI6 that deposed the democratically elected leader of the Ukrainian government in 2014. So the special military operation of February 2022, 3 years ago, was initiated to prevent 100,000 Ukrainian armed forces. Many of them seem to be fascists of the Azov battalion, the Banderites who supported the Nazis in the Second World War. Russia's special military operation was to save the lives of Russian-speaking Orthodox Christian citizens in eastern Ukraine. Russia has no intention of going to war with Europe. It has no intention of continuing the war in Ukraine if Ukraine does not join NATO and does not pose an existential threat to the Russian Federation. So again, it was America's war, America's munitions, American coup in 2014, and the people who decided, I think quite rightly, that they would not live under a fascist imposed American coup on their country, had every right to defend themselves. And they have now voted in referendums to become part of the Russian Federation. So when the conflict comes to an end, I don't see there being any further conflict in Europe unless it's by European leaders who are Russophobic.
You have also spoken about the fact that Russia has an issue with Ukraine joining NATO, which is correct. But there are those who will tell you that Ukraine should be able to join any organization, it feels is okay for its people. But let's talk about the place of the U.S. in all of this. Why is the United States such a critical factor in ensuring peace in Eastern Europe?
Well, from the Second World War, NATO came into power, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in 1949 after the Second World War. It was brought into being as a counterbalance to the Soviet Union. Now, the Soviet Pact only came into being after NATO was born, so you have cause and effect. NATO came into being, and then the Soviet Pact come into being as a balance to that. So Europeans rely on America for their defense, but Russia has never really, Russia in the Second World War was attacked by the Germans. It freed Europe from Nazi fascism. It freed Poland and Estonia and Lithuania and Ukraine and many other nations from German fascist dictatorship rule. Russia hasn't invaded anybody. It's not a threat to Europe. The Americans have bases all over Europe from the end of the Second World War. In many respects, you could claim that all these countries are actually partially occupied by the American military regime, and there is a unspoken threat that there are American troops and American bases all across Europe. Europe is a satrap for America. It's a vassal for American foreign policy. And you can see with the sanctions that Donald Trump is threatening to impose upon Europe, 25% sanctions. He's already said it's because Europe does not allow American produce, American farming and food produce into the EU. The EU has 450 million people. It's bigger than America. The Americans see the EU as another marketplace to sell their products.
All right, so we'll be back to talk about, how Keir Starmer's trip could impact U.S.-UK relations. Let's quickly touch on the fact that Volodymyr Zelensky would be in Washington tomorrow, Friday, to actually, send the papers, I mean, the agreement on sharing of the mineral resources. How do you see it turn out? Because obviously he isn't, I mean, there doesn't seem to be concrete agreement yet because Mr. Zelensky wants to base this on being able to get security guarantees from the U.S.
Well, Trump's already said that the Ukraine will not join NATO. Now, you can say that's not his decision. That's a decision for the Ukrainian parliament and the Ukrainian people. But he's gonna lay down the law. He's gonna bring in Zelensky. He's gonna set him down. He's gonna say the war's over. We're going to make an agreement with the Russians. You're going to sign it, and that's the finish of it. So that's one part of the equation and one part of the question. The other one will be he's going to say, we have financed the war. We have given 330 billion or whatever the sum is that they claim to have spent. We now want something back for our money. So we want your minerals. There's already large swathes, I believe, of Ukrainian land that have been bought by American billionaires or companies or corporations. America has gone in, and the Trump administration, following the Biden administration, with the sole purpose of buying as much of Ukraine as it can, as cheaply as possible as it can, in order to make profit for American corporations, American billionaires, and the industrial military complex. So the war is over. Zelensky will do what he's told, and they're already claiming that Gonzalez Lira was a Chilean American national who was murdered by the Ukrainian regime. And both Elon Musk and Donald Trump have tweeted out that they potentially hold Zelensky responsible for the murder of an American citizen.
All right, Mr. Hughes, you mentioned that the war is over. We'll wait to see how it turns out, really, because we still hear of shellings, coming from the Russian camp to Kiev. But thank you so much for talking to us. We'll wait to see the outcome from this crucial meeting that Keir Starmer will be having with Donald Trump later today. Francis Hughes joined us from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Thank you for your time on Well Down.